It's cool to be part of a new console platform and a new launch, and I love Nintendo, and I've always loved their platforms and their games, so it was personally pretty cool for me. And it was also kind of a challenge because we kind of got the word from people at corporate Agora office. They're like, hey, can you guys pull this off in time for E3? And we're like, sure.
It probably took us a week to get our base libraries where we could actually run the game on the console without any graphics or anything. That's just getting it actually booting up and everything. And then there was probably another week and a half of just getting the graphics to a state where you could see something on the screen and we could actually play the game, which was a big milestone of actually, like, it was pretty cool for us all to see our game running on this brand new console, even if it was in rainbow colors, which is basically what it was. From there, it was just getting all the features. And once we had it running everything, we could actually test that all the functionality was there. And then it was adding in all the extra graphical features to the point where it was at parity with our other platforms. Start to finish, it took us about 5 weeks. That was from when we found out about it, and we basically started working immediately until basically the last day before the show, and at that point we had a fully functional build.
Yeah, and it's all the same assets from the normal build. We didn't really do much to it other than a ton of code work, but
yeah, the majority of the work was 3 programmers: myself, David, and a graphics programmer. And David actually came on about halfway through, so I mean, it was a pretty small team working on this. So I think it's a strength of our engine that it's something that we designed it so we can easily port it to new platforms, and that's why we were, as far as I know, the only developer who had something ready in time for E3, a real AAA game to show.
We weren't really sure we could do it, but so that's where the challenge part came in, and we pulled it off, which was cool. They didn't end up showing it, mainly because it, for various reasons, I don't know, Nintendo decided not to do it, but it was a cool challenge, and I felt like we totally nailed it. I mean, there's a lot of challenges.
There was a lot of challenges.
A lot of late nights, don't get me wrong, but it was fun. I mean, it's rewarding. It's just cool to, just from a pure techie point of view, it's fun to mess around with new hardware and figure out all the little nuances. Because no matter how well designed and well written the API, there's always weird nuances you got to figure out if this works slightly different than the other platforms, or this is slower than dirt on here and fast on here, and you're just figuring all this stuff. I mean, it's tiring and frustrating, but it's pretty rewarding too. So
I think as programmers, it is kind of exciting to, when you work on something on the Xbox or the PlayStation 3, every problem has been solved, and you just need to go search on the news groups or email support. And we were literally finding things as we worked on this and telling Nintendo about them. Hey, how does this work? Well, I don't know. And then we would find the solution ourselves sometimes, and it was kind of cool to just be in new frontier, basically.
I'll be honest, we haven't really worked with Nintendo before. It's the first time, but I will say overall, I mean, they've been really supportive. They got the dev kits to us really quick. They got us access to the dev site. I mean, I would say they haven't put any hurdles in our way or prevent us from doing our job. I mean, the only thing is just, again, it's early, right? So they may not always have the answer to our question, but they do their best to answer it. And over time, they'll build that expertise and they'll be able to answer a lot quicker. So I don't know what it was like before, but I can tell you now, they seem pretty dedicated to helping the developers, get up to speed on the hardware and get stuff working. I mean, it's super early, right? I mean, it's like the first version of all the development software in the kit, so there's a lot of little hiccups. It's one of those things where it was really kind of a pain at first because you're just learning all the quirks and all the stuff, and it did get easier towards the end once we got familiar with it. And you can tell the way the software is organized, the way the APIs are written, that very shortly, I mean, probably it'll become a pretty easy platform to develop. Or I would say, personally, I don't really get into what's easier in that, but definitely from a pure programmer point of view, it's definitely a lot easier than, say, the PS3 was. It's probably on par with the 360 as far as just ease of APIs, simplicity of how you interact with the hardware and that sort of thing. Darksiders 2 it's an adventure game. That's kind of the core of the Darksiders franchise, and one thing we've done a lot of in the sequel is the customization of your character. You get new loot, you get skills, you get all that kind of cool stuff. So there's a lot of RPG type manipulation, looking at quests, checking out where you need to go on the map, that sort of thing. And normally in a game, on a console game, you really have to interrupt the game flow, because usually, screens are full screen, you go into your inventory, it pauses the game or whatever, you fiddle around and you go back. And the great thing about the controller is it's all in real time. If you get a cool new weapon that drops on the ground, Death gets some new scythes, you don't have to like pause, go in the inventory, look, read about it. You can just like glance down and go, yeah, that sucks, and file it away into your bag. You're like, oh wait, that's better than what I got. Boom, and you hit the button, and you have it equipped right there in real time. You don't even have to skip a beat. And I personally think that'll be that in and of itself will be a huge advantage to the player without even getting into any and that's just baseline, just putting the inventory and map and quest management on the controller. But that alone is already a huge boon to the game.
One thing I saw at the press conference that Nintendo was showing off that I thought would be cool is using the controller as kind of a AR thing where you, because we got a mechanism in the game where you throw stuff. In the first Darksiders, you'd have to pick something up and throw it and hit a target. And it's always a little difficult using a joystick to aim precisely, and you could literally just kind of we could have it as you picked up the controller, it would sense once it was held up in front of you, and it would just turn into a display over, showing you what's on the screen, and you're moving the target with the controller. I think with a little effort, we could get it to where you really could run it on that controller by itself. The challenge would be that we designed some of our things like the UI, assuming you're looking at it on a reasonably sized screen, and some of those were a little too small.
From our point of view, we just render a screen and then we call a function, and it automatically goes to the Wii U controller. And as far as behind the scenes, I don't know what's going on. I mean, I assume takes the image, it compresses it, sends it over. All that stuff just happens behind the scenes, and it's works really well. I mean, I think the great thing about the Wii controller, of all the stuff about the development environment, it's got to be the easiest thing to put stuff on. And you can tell they put a lot of time to make sure it was as easy as possible. I mean, it's really quite trivial to get stuff on the screen and read the input. And, so from that point of view, you can tell they definitely put a lot of time and effort into make sure that was easy on the developers.
When we first got everything running, we weren't sure if we'd have enough time to do anything with the controller, so we were kind of putting that off until the game was functional, because obviously it wouldn't be worth showing if you don't have anything up on the screen, the main screen. But then towards the end, we started putting some effort into what can we do with the controller, and the first thing I did was just get it initialized and take what we were showing on the main screen and show it on the controller, and that probably took 10 minutes. It was literally just a couple lines of code, getting it set up, and then it was like one line that actually drew it to there. And then it was cool, because at that point, I could literally, it was a handheld version of Darksiders. I was seeing the exact same game that we'd see on the main screen on the controller screen.
We're definitely going to brainstorm all the different stuff. I mean, the controller's ridiculous, right? It's like touchscreen, cameras, motion, rumble. I don't know, probably makes pancakes. I don't know what it does. It's like the amount of different crazy stuff you could do, I can't even. So, I mean, yeah, I'm sure we'll be brainstorming along. I don't know exactly what we'll come up with, but if we come up with something cool and we think it'll work, we'll do our best to try to implement it.